Well, hello, Julie here with Just Plain Fun, and today I'm going to show you how to make this friendship star block in the Quilt as You Piece method. And I'm just going to get right to it. So I've gotten my fabrics all ready, and I've already done the first section here just to save on time. Basically what I did is I took my square, I layered it with batting and glued the fabrics to the batting, and it was oversized to begin with, and I just cut it down to the size I needed to be, and then I added the two triangles to this in the Quilt as You Piece method, and I'm going to show you how I did that by showing you how to do this. All right, so let me get started. Grab this and this and this, set this aside, and the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you're going to be correctly oriented, and you're going to fold this over just like this so that it lines up exact. And I made sure that when I cut these pieces, this one's the only one that was oversized. The rest of them, including the batting, are exact sizes as indicated in the pattern. So you're going to put teeny tiny dots of glue, and I mean teeny tiny, and 3 or 4, you don't need that many, and you want to make sure that you line this corner up perfectly so that you can't even see the fabric underneath it. And then you're going to hold the iron down on it, press it for 10 seconds, and you really do want 10 seconds, because if it's less than that, your fabric could come up with the iron, which I've found in the past. So and then you're going to repeat the same thing for the other side. Okay, we're good. You're going to repeat the same thing for the other side. Yeah, it's correctly oriented. Turn it over. And then again, teeny tiny dots of glue. And I want to make sure that this is oriented. See, that's not correct. This is correct. So I'm going to lay that down. And you want to make sure that you do an exact, well, actually a scant 1/4 inch seam. And because you're stitching through fabric and batting, you're going to want to set your stitch length to 3.0. And then what I'm going to do also at the same time is I'm going to go ahead and add my first piece of batting. And the way I do that, I'm going to do that now while I'm off camera, is you want to make sure that when you put your batting up against it, it forms a triangle. But you also want to make sure that you pull your batting forward a little bit like this, because this is more batting than you actually need. And it should, hopefully it'll line up here and you'll be able to trim this off. But your sewing machine, or at least mine does, it'll end up pulling it, and you might actually line up perfectly. So you do your 1/4 inch seam allowance, you do a zigzag stitch to join the batting to the previous piece, and your settings for your batting your width should be set at 6.0 and your stitch length should be set at 4.0. All right, I'm going to go ahead and take this over to the sewing machine, and I'll be right back. All right, so as you can see, I did actually do a little bit up ahead, or pulled it forward a little bit, and this is why. I want to show you. Because when you open this up, your batting lines up. It didn't work so good on this side, but you know what? It looks good anyway. It's going to work. So what I do next is I go ahead and get my glue stick, and I glue this. I put glue on the fabric, not on the batting. And if you notice, I hold my thumb down, and that's because if I don't, that's what happens. So you probably figured that out. All right. It's just something that I started doing this back in January of 2019. And I've made 3 quilts in this manner. Well, 2.5. I've actually made 4 quilts total. The first one is on my guest room bed, and see, I turn it over and do the same thing. It lines up, and I'm going to glue this down. And the second quilt was a wedding quilt, and my stepson and his wife has it, and that was also a queen size quilt. That started off as a big giant panel in the middle of a doe and a buck, and with a bunch of oak leaves in the forest. It was really pretty. And the back side had an outdoor theme as well, all done in blues. The front was all done in browns, and they like the back side more than the front, which is pretty cool. But it's double-sided, so they can, you know, over time, if they choose to have the front show, they can. All right, so I've gotten this all glued down, and the next step is to go ahead and put these triangles on. And I'll get that started in just a moment. I've actually made more than 4 quilts. I'm talking about I've made 4 quilts since January 2019. I made others, you know, in the traditional way previously. I've been sewing since the age of 11 on a sewing machine. So I've made a handful of quilts. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and I should trim this little dog ear off. And I don't actually have to trim this edge off, because that batting there is just going to be part of the other batting. It'll be fine. And so I just need to line up the fabric so it's lined up to the fabric. You know, line up this fabric to this fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. It'll take me just a moment. Again, I forgot to plug in my irons, so I can at least get the glue started. Again, teeny tiny dots. You really don't need much. And you want to make sure that you keep the dots in the seam allowance, of course. And you're going to line this up with your previous piece. And make sure it's lined up exactly. And to the fabric, not to the batting. The batting can stay there, because when you go ahead and do the zigzag stitching, it'll just be an extension. It'll be fine. And when you do your 1/4 inch seam allowance, make sure you're following the edge of the fabric and not the batting. All right, and then you go ahead and press that seam, or set the fabric, or set the glue. And since I'm using such teeny tiny dots of glue, it seems to dry quicker. Okay, flip it over, and I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Again, following the fabric. You don't want to follow the batting when you go and stitch these together, and line the fabric up to the fabric. And yes, it's going to hang over a little bit. That's okay. And then set that. And to save time on the video, I'm going to go ahead and do what I did previously. I'm going to go ahead and do my seam allowance and also do the zigzag at the same, do the zigzag right after I do the seam allowance. So I will be right back. Stitching is done, and I just wanted to show you how this worked out with the batting. See, it's perfect. So all I have to do when I'm ready to trim is just trim this up. And for some reason, well, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I stitched it exactly the way I was supposed to, but I'm still a little off here. This one looks good. I'm not going to take it out and do it over again. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and glue this down. Again, using my washable glue here. And I do have affiliate links on my website to these products that I use. I don't think the iron's there, but the glue is there. And you can get of course, you can get the Elmer's school glue anywhere. Even my local grocery store, which is tiny, has it. So you can find it anywhere. And yes, I do have the affiliate link on my website to go to Amazon to get the glue. Alright, so in this video, in my videos, you're never going to see me talk about who the manufacturer is of the fabrics and stuff like that. I'm not sponsored by any of these. And this is fabric that I've gotten. In a previous video, I explained where my fabrics come from. So it's not really about the fabrics. It's about making the blocks with the quilted piece method. Okay, so my next step here is I'm going to go ahead and trim. I'm not going to trim here or here. I'll do that at the very end. But I do need to trim here and here in order to prepare for the next step. All right, so and I know what my width has to be. And I'm going to use this ruler. And I know I'm definitely wider than I need to be. I'm going to go get a different ruler. Here's the ruler I'm going to use. And move this one out of the way so you don't see that glare. Rotary cutter. So these are, I know that this is accurate. So basically what I'm doing is I'm going to line my ruler up against these edges here and just trim off the excess. That's all I'm going to do. And I'm going to use my weight again so it helps keep the ruler in place. Just make sure it's lined up to that center square. And cut off any extra. Okay, that side is clean. Now let's do this side. Now, as you can see here, I'm going to be off a little bit, but it's going to be fine in the end. It should be fine in the end. What did I do? I know my seam is on. Let me check the width of my square. I know where I need to be, and it's exactly where it needs to be. Well, I'm going to make sure that it stays where it needs to be. I'm just going to cut that off. So if you want the measurements, just go ahead, sign up for free points account, and you can download this PDF file with the measurements in it, but it is going to be 20,000 points. And somewhere in this video, I'm going to be giving you a secret code that you can use to redeem or to, claim those 20,000 points, and then you can redeem them for this file. And you register at jpfund.com. There'll be a link in the description below that you can use. And I'm going to compensate for that. Not sure what happened, why it's off a little bit. Could be because I miscut this one, or I don't know what happened. But it doesn't look too bad. Looks like I'll just have like an 1/8 of an inch seam here or something. But I should be able to cover that up. All right, so the next step here is you're going to do some normal piecing. Like I said before, this is strip 1. This is strip 2, and this is strip 3. Maybe I didn't say that before. But anyway, what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and put these patches together as you normally would any ordinary quilt. You're going to put them together. This one here and these two here. And you can go ahead and chain piece them. Do all 4 triangles all at once. And I actually do glue mine together and I stitch them. And then once those are done, then these get added to those triangles. So I'm going to go ahead and do the chain piecing on the triangles first. And I'll be right back. So these have been chain pieced, and I'm ready to go ahead and snip them apart. So the one thing is I need to make note of, I'll let you know, is I only put like 5 dots of glue, teeny tiny dots of glue on my seams so that I could open them up. It's very important in this particular block and blocks where I'm adapting for Quilt as you piece, to make sure that you open up your seams where it's appropriate. Normally I wouldn't open up my seams if I was just quilting traditionally, and with Quilt as you piece, normally you don't open up seams anyway because they're inherently ironed to one side. But in this case, there's going to be major bulk when you get onto the corners here, and that's why you want to open up the seams here and here, and also you want to open up these seams when you get to that point. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm just going to do one, and then I'll do the rest off camera. And since I only did 5 dots on these, yeah, this is tedious, but it's worth the effort. Better than using pins. Okay, it's more accurate. Okay, so see, I'm able just to pull them apart, but you can also use your seam ripper to slide through these glue dots. And if you put your glue dots, one at each end, one in the middle, and then one in the middle of, you know, put one here, one here, one here, and then one in each of the middle between the middle and the ends. That's 5 dots. It works. It works. It works. It works. And I'm sure you know how to do this. So I'm just going to go ahead and do one on camera. I'll do the rest off camera. And what I do, I kind of go to one side a little bit just to get it started, and then go do that to the other side as well. And then I go ahead and finish opening it up. And if you notice, I didn't bother cutting the points. But I will. I'll do that, you know, when I go to trim these up. And try not to touch yourself with the iron. It's hot, like I just did. All right, this one didn't get completely open. It's not hard though. But I just wanted to point that out. You got to open up your seams. I know a lot of people say that it makes it weaker, but since I do plan on quilting this afterwards, that'll help keep the fabric in place, and it shouldn't come apart at the seams. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open up the seams on the rest of them, and I'll be right back. All right, so the rest of them have been opened up, and I'm going to go ahead and clip these corners because I clipped the other ones. It'll take me just a moment here. Anything to reduce bulk. Okay, so I know that these are the exact size that they need to be, so I'm not going to bother doing anything more to trim them up, just cutting off the dog ears. Okay, so the next step is to go ahead and glue them to these and then to stitch them. And again, you want to be very, very stingy with your glue. I would probably just do 3 dots on this one so that you can take them apart with a seam ripper. See, I just slide it in and break the little dots with it. And so I'm going to go ahead and, well, let me show you what I'm doing. You're going to take one of them and you're going to make sure it's oriented correctly before you do this. So you want it like that. And then one of the blue squares, well, one of the squares goes here, and then the other one will go here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera and do this side first, and then I'll take you step by step through the other side. Have the first section done, and I'm going to show you how I did that by doing this one on camera with you. You won't actually see me sew it, but I'll take you step by step. So the first thing you want to do is you want to sew these together just like this. And to make sure that you have them oriented correctly, I'm not even going to bother glue. I don't actually have to. I'm going to go ahead and flip this over to make sure that I have the pink correct. So this one I know is correct. And looks like that one's going to be correct. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch this one onto here. And I will be right back.